Now that we've got a passing test, we've got an error right here saying, hey, you've got an update into location that wasn't wrapped in act. Like, what in the world is this? And you can dive in and read about this. I linked to a blog post in the instructions. But basically what's going on here is when we call this callback, that's actually going to be calling a state updater function within a third-party component that we're using, which will trigger an update to the state. Now, React wasn't expecting that to happen, and it wants to make sure that we were actually expecting that to happen. And on top of that, we also need to make sure that all of the side effects that are triggered as a result of that state update are flushed before we continue on with our test, because there could be a slight period of time between when the DOM is updated and our side effects are all run that is imperceptible to the user, but is perceptible to our tests. And so we want to make sure we're only testing the things that the user can see and interact with. And so for that reason, we need to say, hey, React, I'm about to do something. And when this callback I give you is finished, I want you to go ahead and flush all of the side effects that were triggered as a result of all these things that I'm about to do, this action I'm about to take. Now, act is a function that's built in to React test utils, and React testing library re-exports it right here. So we can pull that act utility out, and then we're going to wrap this inside of act. So we'll say act, and this is an asynchronous thing that's happening. So we're going to make our callback async, and we're going to wait for this whole thing to finish. Now what this is going to do is it's going to say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do all of the things, which it will include calling this callback. And once this whole thing resolves, then I'll go ahead and flush all of the side effects that happened during that time. So now we can save this, and we now get rid of that warning and are interacting with a stable UI just like the user would in a real application. This is one of the very few places where you actually need to use act directly. Most of the APIs that you use within React Testing Library are going to handle this for you automatically, so you don't normally need to deal with act directly. But in situations like this, where we are directly calling a function that results in calling a state updater function, we do have to use act ourselves.